I don't know why, but today, Friday, feels like a Monday to me. I don't know why. I wake up in the morning thinking that it's Monday.
I think it's the first time I ever heard that version of Friday. The Monday Friday is something unheard of. Okay, so Guy, hi Guy, do you hear us?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, how was your week before we jump to the show?
It's good. It's good. I'm looking forward to the weekend, but like very productive and some interesting sessions on like a few data science webinars online.
Oh, nice. And what's your interest in those?
I mean, I'm a data scientist, so I'm like, picking up some valuable information from others and sharing knowledge.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, and so we for those who don't know Guy, you're gonna know him in a few minutes. Just be patient there. But essentially, he's related to Queer Tech and Pride Hacks. We're gonna talk more about it. We also Simran mentioned briefly Starter Fest. We're gonna talk about it in the show. So just stay around. Anyway, it's raining, right? Where are you guys gonna go? Right? Just so stay around. Facebook is good for you. Just stay there. Alejandro, how was your week?
My
Besides the
week.
Friday component and the weather component.
Yeah, well, I think that for this week, all week it's been Friday for me, as opposed to what Simran is experiencing. Yeah, it's been relaxed after the creative collision that was the craziness. Now it's relaxed. It's still not as slowed down as I was expecting. I'm still have a bunch of things to do, but in a more relaxed way. And to be honest, the rain, it hasn't affected me. Indeed, I'm enjoying it. It's so beautiful, the weather so far, even with the rain.
So
Even with the rain.
yeah, Alejandro, I've been so much sleep deprived in the last few weeks that the rain, is like feels good. He's like out of it. What was the movie Shawshank Redemption when he's out like with the rain, happy? So welcome
Well,
back to the real life, Alejandro.
indeed,
Uh,
the weather is so nice that, and I don't have AC, that I'm sleeping so perfectly right now, which helps a lot. And then
it's a good point. Yeah.
yesterday, I went to Startup Fest in person. I was
Oh,
one of those privileged people who had access in person, at least for a few hours, and it's amazing. I loved it. I love the spirit of the team. I'll send you a picture, so perhaps you can show it in the during the section where you will be talking about them. It is their 10th anniversary, by the way, uh,
yeah.
and they
Yeah,
pull it
yeah.
off like really nicely.
So I'm curious, since that's the only section so far that is not related to Fridays and weather, the Startup Fest part. For someone like you who thrives on doing events and organizing, I know the last few have been remote, right? How is it to get into an event in a normal quote unquote setups where you actually physically attend?
Well, just to correct on that, I don't organize events. There are
Okay.
some initiatives that we run
Yes.
that happen in an online atmosphere now, and it gave me ideas. Well, it's the first thing is that I feel identified for the challenges they had. I related a lot to what they told me, like their experience behind the scenes, and I know what it required for them to pull everything. Like, it's amazing what they did.
Okay, so you don't organize events. All those like creative collision and connecting intelligence just happen by themselves. You're just near them, and they just organically, self-organize. You're that
Indeed, they are
good.
not
No.
events.
You're not allowed to enter. You just have to deal with that. Hey, we have a show to make. Oh, I totally forgot my point. The reason why I'm in the car was supposed to be in a coffee shop, and well, you can guess the rest. It didn't work out well, right? So I'm in a car stealing internet from an adjacent Wi-Fi source. But essentially, we're gonna do the show from here, from my car, because I'm on the go. And yes, it's not paradise and white. That's the rain outside. But we're gonna do the show in just a few minutes. So thanks for everyone who joined in. Uh, Alejandro, we might gonna see you at the end if you're still around. I'm watching you. Guy, don't go anywhere. You literally are last section. So for those who want to know more about Pride Hacks, just wait for Guy. Dennis, you're ready on your end?
Yep. Let's
Perfect.
get it
So
started.
let's start the show with me and Simran. So 5, 4, 3. Let me. I have ways to do this. Okay. 5, 4,
Oh,
3,
oh my
2, 1. Go. And hi, welcome. No. Okay. Let me breathe. Take my, like persona where I'm like always joyful. Okay. So hi, welcome to Montreal's New Tech last check-in, La Check-in edition. It's number 15 now. We've been doing 15. It's our 15th episode. Those time goes quickly, right? In the context of we started in the context of COVID, saying like, hey, can we just try to still kind of talk about tech within the community? A lot of people wanted to know what's going on, and it seems to work. People seems to keep watching, so here we are.
Yeah.
I'm joined today by Simran, who was there last time. So Simran, why you decided to come back for another show?
You're talking about the experience. My experience started with webcast as a viewer, then as a participant of one of Montreal UTech's event, and now as a host, which is, yeah.
Okay, so I should like be worried because soon you will come after my job and like coordinate the whole thing, right? Like your progression curve is really
No,
perfect.
I'm glad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. So we have a show today that's pretty interesting. We're gonna talk about some big initiatives from LinkedIn and Google. We also gonna talk about Le Wagon Tech 8. Well, there's plenty of things, but I think one of the interesting part is towards the end, where we talk about the latest initiatives from QueerTech, which is their Pride Hacks. Just stay around. It's gonna be in a few minutes, but let's start with the highlight section. So the highlight section, for those who are fairly new to the show, is where we just take a bit of time off and recap what the interesting bits and pieces of news, initiatives, and such within the startup ecosystem. And this week, it's kind of hard to miss, but Startup Fest took a lot of time and space in everybody's agenda. Simran, you attended the last event. How was it?
Oh, I did. After Creative Collisions, knowing that how organization on remote event happens, I think I really like Startup Fest. And like not just my perspective, I was reading chats of other people as well. Like I could see, oh, this is the smoothest remote event that they have attended. We love the vibe. It started with the really cool DJ music, and now finally got like a playlist for something to start my day. So that was good. I think the swap cards and brain dates that they were using for Startup Fest, that's something that I had fun as well. I got to meet a lot of new people, and it was a cool way to just have 5 minutes meeting with them, and then maybe like have meetings next week. So that was something cool. And brain dates, I wasn't able to join brain dates last year, so this, even though it was remote, so I was able to join brain dates. They were really cool topics on AI, data science, marketing, a lot of things. So I think it was a pretty successful event, and I loved how they did everything so smoothly.
So you attended the physical event or the online version?
No, online one. If I was in Montreal, maybe physical, but I'm from Toronto. I am in Toronto, so yeah.
Perfect. So we have for those who are curious, at the end of the show, if Alejandro is still around, he went to the physical version of it. I'm curious for you guys to compare note. But essentially, yeah, Startup Fest. I'm glad they kept the online version because a lot of events are canceling and a lot of people were worried there. And yeah, brain dates. So what was your experience with brain dates?
So with brain dates, it's like it's more of like that you see a topic, you can join based as a group or as an individual. So even I was able to like create a topic that I'm interested in, people can join me with the slots.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to join one of the AI initiative one. So it was pretty good. But I think I was more active on Swapcard than brain dates. So basically finding people based on filters who I think I want to talk to, and then just asking them to connect to. So I connected with like 5 to 6 people who are from same area. So it was pretty helpful to learn from them. So that was, yeah. And like also Alejandro mentioned, it was their 10th year anniversary. So it 2020 is like already like a year. So it's like a rememberable time. So yeah.
Nice. It's great because that's one of the nice things of a physical event, right? And it's great that those brain dates are working well online. I'm gonna jump to the next topic, which is something I've been kind of eager to talk about. So there's bits of new pieces, and they're kind of related, although it's very different companies. Google and Microsoft are different companies. The first one is from Google, and they're pushing more inexpensive training. So right now you have, of course, related to marketing and various skills like that are very, very on demand. And Google is living out of marketing and some of those digital skills. That's literally their bread and butter. But what they decided to do is to push very inexpensive skills that you can acquire within a few weeks, like fairly short duration. So we're not talking about this like college that takes you a few years, let's say 4 years for college, but you can get a training that is, according to Google standards, similar to what you would get out of a college that takes you 4 years, but you'll get it in a few months instead. And Google said that they will recognize those skills as being similar to what you can get in a college. And I think that is very, very interesting because it kind of pushes a direction where, as a student, you'll have to make a decision if you want to go to college or university, let's say, or acquire a similar level of skills. You might not have all the optional classes, and maybe not as much on like the ethics sides and all those kind of more detailed or more university style, more abstract classes. But a company like Google will recognize them as being the same, and I'm pretty sure that some other companies will recognize them too. Meaning, like, if you're good enough for Google, you're good enough for my little ad agency, for example. And I said they're inexpensive. When I checked, they're around Coursera around $50. So that's a very interesting bits of news. Go ahead, Simran.
And on top of that, they're like giving 100,000 scholarships, so even to cover those prices of Coursera. So
yeah.
And like what I read was the 6-month certification, you can apply for Google Jobs directly. So it's like, even as a student, when I was applying, a lot of companies have degree requirements. So they mentioned that if you have that certification, then you can that you don't need degree requirements.
It will be the equivalent. And I think that's because for many years, there was this dilemma in academia saying, like, should a university adjust its offering based on the professional world? And what you see with companies like Google is that, well, they're not waiting. It's just, you know what, we're going to create those. And they're not making a dime. They're not making money out of those. Out of those classes. It's just they need the workforce. And related to that, Microsoft. So Microsoft a few years back purchased LinkedIn, and I think that was one of the most interesting purchase. And they purchased for many, many billions. It was extremely expensive, but out of that, what they got is they suddenly got a real-time mapping of who in the workforce, in the industry, needs what type of skills and is using what type of softwares. And out of that, they basically established a list, I think about 10 different skills that people need. So like project management, of course, you can guess it, a lot of things related to data, big data and such. So all those kind of skills that keep coming up, like the 21st century most on-demand skills. And they created that list, and they're providing them for free or nearly free because they have this platform called LinkedIn Learning. And what they do also is they're pushing that. They have initiative for nonprofits where they make it accessible. They have Microsoft Team, which is like a Slack competitor of some sort. They want to push that if your company is under Office 365, your staff can get trained for free with LinkedIn Learning, as part of the offering. So your staff knows how to use digital platforms, their Microsoft products, but also others. They make extremely cheap certifications. Those certifications for Microsoft used to cost like a few $100. Suddenly you can get them for almost, I think they said about $50, $40, if I remember it right. Well, those certifications used to cost a few $100, and when you have one in your resume, you can work in that field. Now they make it as inexpensive as possible, right? And this is interesting because a lot of companies said, well, with COVID, we have to work remote, and my staff is not that, comfortable with technologies. So they said, we're gonna fix that. We know what are the most required skills, and we're gonna provide that training for free if you're part of our platform. This is really, really interesting. So as I said, it's not the same news than Google, but it's related. It again goes in this idea that companies are not waiting for universities to train people. They're like, we can provide this training faster, better, in a more scalable fashion. So this is kind of the highlights on my end, because overall, if I have to put one keyword, is accessibility. This makes education extremely, extremely accessible for everyone. So that's the highlight. Sorry, I went a bit off on a tangent, but God, I'm passionate about these things. But if you want to know more, because of course there's more than just that who happened, the newsletter is a fantastic source to get more information. We have one of our volunteers, Andy, working on that. So you can check on the link and you also get the link in the show notes that we update after the show. But essentially, this is a longer version of all the events and news bits and pieces that you get in the ecosystem. Okay, enough about what happened, because if you weren't there, it's too late. It's just to give you a taste so you don't feel like you missed out. What's going to happen? So let's go to the next section. And the next section, well, is where we talk about the call to action. You want to get more involved. You want to know more about tech and the ecosystem. What should you do about it? What's coming up? Where should you apply? Where should you click? And our first bit of news is, well, deals with Google again. Simran, can you tell us more?
Yeah, before I add to that point, like I know you are also passionate. I'm also passionate about this thing. As an international student, I think education was a big hurdle for a lot of people. And like I was lucky that my parents were able to afford my education. But like with these kind of initiatives by big companies, I think it's a huge trend that they're setting towards upskilling of people. And I remember in one of the hackathons, I was working on the project which was about upskilling. So I think this is a huge step which COVID is pushing us to go. And I'm really happy. Like this is actually forcing education systems to change. Now coming to Google, another news from Google is that they launched accelerator program for women founders, and the deadline is 22nd of July, so it's next week. So, and it's a really cool process. It's for all the tech startups from seed to Series A. So I think it's a really cool opportunity for all the female founders to be part of such a great accelerator program. So yeah, I'm really happy with all what's happening.
Yeah, this is interesting because it relates to, we talked just in the previous section about how Google, Microsoft, and those companies are making the knowledge more and more accessible. And with accessibility also comes a level where the diversity can join in, because suddenly everybody have access to the same tools. And it's nice to see Google's being even more proactive about that. Not just saying this is available to everyone, but to actually create incentives. Related to even more accessibility, Le Wagon, there's some of them around the world, and they have this over summer called Le Wagon Summer Talk Series. And there's a lot of various events they're doing. I'm just going to cover a few. Let me look. So the first one, and this is Wednesday, so just in a few days, is with Vlad Serban, the CEO of Corbett, and he's working about something I personally like a lot, which is ed tech. You can kind of guess it. We've been talking about educational and technology in some ways since the beginning of the show, but he has that vision where he can use AI as a way to create tutors to help students in their learning. There's also another event the week after that, which is with Pascal Odette, the CEO of Carebook, and this is a slightly different. So this is about health and tech. Anything plus tech works in my book, but essentially is about let's say pharmacists and such. They're usually the first line. This is the resource where people go to when they have a problem. And considering that, they're looking how they can simplify the process. Then if I look, Le Wagon also has some workshops, so one about CSS. There's also other events like I can go through the list. There's many of them, and I'm sure I will let Dennis be confused, or like, where should I click, Valentine? But if you, Dennis, just scroll the list, there's a bunch of them. So honestly, just take a look. Amazing knowledge you can get from people working in startups, today. Some of them starting their startups, some being more mature and scaling up. So it's fantastic to have all those perspectives here. And so that's Le Wagon. And the next section, and then we stop the next and we go to the Queer Tech, we promise, is Tech Aid Cafe. So what is that, Simran?
So Tech Aid Cafe, I was actually introduced through Montreal Tech Webcast. So I talked to Nabil last week, and he explained more about Tech Aid Cafe, how it started, and how they have a data science program of continuing studies with McGill students. So this particular initiative of Python course is basically Nabil is one of the instructor, and along with that, there is one more instructor who is like a Google employee. So they're starting with small cohort of groups and giving Python courses for free. It's starting next week too, as you can see, from Tuesday till Sunday. And I think it's really cool that the industry and the academia both are coming together to teach a course like that, because normally we are already talking about edtech a lot. So normally I see that even in my courses, there's so much about theory and not much about what is being applied to industry. If something like that can work together, the courses becomes really good. So I personally really liked it. And Nabil explained a lot to me about why they started TechKit and what's happening with McGill and how the industries are coming along. So it's something cool for beginners as well. So I think, yeah.
This is fantastic, and I like exactly. It's it's McGill with Google doing a project together for the greater good. But essentially, yeah, this sounds interesting. We should probably get one of them to interview, because I'm very curious of what's their experience doing those kind of classes online. Of course, there are already massive online classes, but there's also value in getting those like smaller group trainings that I think is a powerful motivational drive as well. Just watching videos is not always the same. Then knowing that person is there talking only once for you, it creates a bit more value. Okay, so thanks, Imran, for that section. And of course, for those who wants to know more, we have the startup resources, and the startup resource is something that we're working on to kind of put all the different links and resources is a horrible explanation, but essentially just go there. I can explain it to you, or I can just let you click. Now you cannot click on the video because technology is not advanced yet, but you can go into the show notes and it will be there. And that's my smooth transition to the show notes, and Dennis appreciates that. But essentially go there and you will see the startup resource. It's basically just a few links that we know are a fantastic source to get started. Now, let's jump to the part we've been waiting for, which is essentially the deep dive. And the deep dive is where we take a moment, we take a break, where like there's a lot of news, there's a lot of events going on, but we just want to take one, put it on the side, and ask him a bunch of questions, a bit more follow-ups and such. And this time we're lucky because we have Guy. Guy, do you hear us?
Yes, I do. Do you hear me?
And yes, we hear you perfectly. And Guy is from QueerTech. So, well, as you can read it, but yes, Guys from QueerTech. Can you tell us a bit more what you're working on, and since how long you've been with them?
Yeah, definitely. So I've been with QueerTech for just over 2 years now. And maybe a word about QueerTech in general. It's QueerTech is a nonprofit that's actually started as like a group within Montreal New Tech. And last year kind of like became an official nonprofit in Canada. And our goal is to basically, we're calling it queering the tech ecosystem by breaking down barriers, creating safe spaces, and connecting different communities to empower the LGBT community within the tech scene. Yeah, we're based in Montreal, obviously, Montreal and New York, and we do a bunch of cool stuff.
This is the moment where guys like, Valentine, I need more specific questions. So this is cool. I always find it fascinating, the fact that it's a project that started in Montreal New Tech, but then grew to become its own thing. And I wish we have that more often. So if the person listening to this show wants to start a project and you feel that structure like Montreal New Tech can give you a bit of a heads up, and we incubate projects basically, and then you do the thing. We all know controls over what you do as long as your mission drives you. Keep driving it. That's perfect. So Simran, do you have any question for Guy? He's here waiting.
So Guy, I also organized few hackathons back in 2018 and 2019. So now everything is remote. So just wanted to know about what is something different that you're doing in terms of hackathon experience. And I know Pride Hacks is one of the important event of QueerTech. So what's something that you're planning with the team?
Yeah, it's a great question. So usually the way it works is we physically get together in a company's office in downtown Montreal, something between 50 to 150 people, developers that try to solve some really pressing issues LGBTQ nonprofits in Montreal and in Canada in general. And it's a 2-day hackathon. Last year has been a great success, and also it's been running for 3 years now, and we keep on growing every year. And this year, obviously, because of COVID, things have to change. And we, in the past few months, we started adjusting and moved our events to be more online and in a virtual context. So what we do this year for Pride Hacks, which is the hackathon, is we're doing it fully online, meaning groups are being set virtually. You can work with other people from anywhere in Canada or basically in the world. People can apply to participate as a developer, as a marketing person, as a business developer. Like, there's a lot of different options that you can contribute. It's not limited to only highly skilled software developers. And it's a great place to kind of create connections, pick up new skills, and learn from people who are more advanced, and help mentor others. And yeah, it's going to be fully online. We'll need project managers. We'll need developers. We're also open to take on new projects if anyone has a cool idea that can help contribute to the LGBTQ community, especially in these times. Definitely submit your suggestions.
That's a good point. Usually, a lot of people are think that when it's a hackathon, I always like to point it out, you don't need to be a dev. And actually, the worst thing you can have is only have devs. You need other perspectives. You need that diversity of skills. So, whatever project you work on, especially if it relates to diversity in general, create better prototypes, better, ideas and concepts. Sorry, Simran, I've cut you out.
No, it's okay. I was just going to mention that before the webcast, I read the impact report from last year's Pride Hacks, and I was really impressed by everything.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. And I see the submission is open right now, and the event is on August 7th and 8th. I just have a few questions. Like another thing, the first online hackathon that I attended was Together versus Virus, and they did something that they tried connecting people on Slack and basically more on challenge based. So what is something that Pride Hacks is doing to connect people of different diverse backgrounds? Like you mentioned, and Valentine mentioned, that just to be a hackathon, you don't have to be a developer. You need different set of skills as well. So is this something that your team is doing to connect people?
Yeah, definitely. So every year we do, we build a community through Slack channels. There's like a general Slack channel for the entire participant, all of the participants, and then per project, so you can actually communicate with others. Now it's going to be even more important because people are not in the same room. And then we also have a Facebook group it's a private Facebook group that's, once you sign up, it's a space where you can interact with other people in the community. It lives later, like, for years after. So the original one started in 2017, and that group is still live, and like things are still happening there.
Are you recreating a new group every time, or you're reusing the same group?
We're reusing the same group. So someone who joins the community can be in there. And so, we want to keep it growing rather than restarting every time.
I like how you're saying like it's obvious, but I've been to many, hackathons, because the reality is internally often the team is different, right? Where if you join that Slack, one or 2 weeks after the event, it's dead. So it's fantastic you keep, using the same one.
Yeah, I think the Facebook group is that for the long-term community building, it's more useful than Slack, because like you said, I'm also on a bunch of different Slack channels, and it can very fast become a little bit spammy. We want to avoid that. So Slack is mostly used for the day of or the weeks of, and making sure that we're actually making an impact with nonprofits and implementing what we develop during Pride Hacks. And then once that's done, we have the rest of what we do as QueerTech. And we do like virtual self-care events. We do fundraiser for queer artists in Montreal. So it's a bunch of different options and activities that you can connect with other people in the community.
Nice. So the deep dive just runs for a few minutes. I'll put one last question, but we'll keep you around, Guy, because we have more questions, and I'll also put Alejandro and other people from the team. But what I was curious is, of course, your mission is to promote inclusion. When you do events like a Pride Hack, initially you get a lot of people already abide to that, vision. What efforts are you guys doing in order to grab people that aren't necessarily aware or sensitive to those issues? For example, organizations that already exist, and kind of promote that inclusion more proactively. Because it's the same thing, right? If people already agree on the mission, join. It's fantastic for those people, but the idea is always to extend.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think actually Montreal New Tech is one of those great examples where it works really well. And every year, so clearly most of our community is coming from the LGBTQ community. But a big part of what makes Pride Hacks impactful and useful is actually our allies. So people who don't necessarily identify as LGBTQ+, but they still want to make an impact. They still care about other other problems and want to expand their horizons. And with Montreal New Tech every year, in a month or 2 months before Pride Hacks happens, we actually start pushing towards getting people from the general tech scene, or working with other community organizations like FinTech Cadence and others that whose members could be interested in supporting our community and actually learning about topics that otherwise would be very remote from them.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And it's always about, it comes in the culture of tech too, which is, it doesn't matter how much who you are, where you're from, is what's your skill level. Can you code? And then it turns out you also have an identity, and it's in many ways a switch from culture, like culturally the way we see things, where you have an identity that we base ourselves on, and then you know how to code, right? So playing with those two concepts and know when to focus on which one, ideally by while removing as many barriers as possible, is fantastic. Guys, so if people are curious, again, we'll have more questions right after we end the show in the lobby section. But if people are curious, where can they go? When's the deadline?
So deadlines for participants is probably a week or July 31st, for you to sign up and be put into a group based on your choice, so you can prioritize which project is the most interesting for you. We will advertise them so people can know what are the different problems we're trying to tackle. If you want to submit a project, then it's sooner, in the coming week, because we need to actually sift through all the project applications and pick the ones that are most impactful to tackle within this hackathon. Yeah, you can go on pridehacks.devpost.com, or shoot us an email at hello@pridehacks.co. If you have any questions, we're also obviously on Facebook as QueerTech. Feel free to contact us. You can also shoot me an email. It's just guy@queertech.ca. And yeah, come code. It's going to be fun.
Nice. It sounds fantastic. I might even have an idea I'll submit and go through your thorough and rigorous process of no, Valentine, your idea is bad, but I will try. So essentially, thank you guys. This is all we have for the show. I know Simran has a bunch of questions. Don't worry, we'll have time. But I'm just gonna close the show by thanking, first of all, Guy, thank you for being available and talking about the initiative. I hope people go on that and submit their ideas and learn and participate. Simran, thank you. It's the second time you're co-hosting. It's good. I feel the comfort, so it's really nice. Dennis, let's bring Alejandro as well. Alejandro, so the next question goes to Simran, but Alejandro, you who do not organize events, I'm sure you have some questions. But beforehand, I'll stop torturing. Simran, you had a question. Go ahead.
Actually, I was just gonna say that even though the things are remote and we think the hackathons, if they're remote, they're not doing. I personally think it's helping a lot of people who are not in Montreal to attend something like Pride Hacks. So from overall Canada and everywhere. So my question was, Guy, is the event open for outside Canada participants as well? Can international people participate too?
Definitely. So this is the nice thing about, everything is really unfortunate that's happening, obviously, but the nice thing about it, that it enables us to part of our mission statement is we want to break barriers. And this is one massive barrier that's now kind of we can actually break it. And using this online platform of DevPost, this is open to anyone to participate from any time zone, any country, any city. It's also open for nonprofits from elsewhere in Canada if they want to submit their project that are relevant to the community. But yeah, it's everyone is definitely open to join.
Yeah, so we have a great question from Elias as well. So what's actually missing in terms of the talent pool? Like, what kind of people do you really want to bring in that are currently not involved?
Yeah, it makes sense because, as you said, we don't have the limit of Montreal anymore. So let's say in Montreal, there's certain type of expertise, but as you go and you open worldwide, what do you hope? What do you need right now?
Yeah, so I think some of the key things we need, and it's very repetitive every year, is we need We need developers who are proficient in JavaScript, web development, WordPress. A lot of it is website development oriented, but we also need people who are in marketing or kind of business strategy. Because some of the problems that we tackle are more about how to, how to improve the reach of a certain nonprofit to get to help more people. So some of it is actually very tech-oriented and developer-y, but some of it is more, how do we improve our service? So we really do need a variety of skills, and don't hesitate if you're a beginner level. You're going to be able to contribute, and you're going to be able to learn a lot. If you're a senior developer or in a senior position, we also need mentors. If you can help kind of look across different projects and help push in the right direction when needed, we need that as well. It's very helpful and we've got good feedback in past years from mentors and from mentees.
And so I'll push the mentoring part right now, especially in the context of a lot of students. It's a real problem. A lot of students are in this kind of between. Starting an internship is really, really hard. So they participate in a lot of those hackathons.
Yeah.
And if you have the experience, you don't need to be the most advanced senior thing. That actually sometimes not even helping. You just need to have a bit more experience than a student. In some ways, have worked in a few companies, but you can provide something that seems very obvious for you in terms of comments. It can land on that person that just out of university, and you can give them a very interesting perspective that right now they're not able to have any internships, so they really need that experience and that opportunity.
Yeah, and also if you're more on the junior side of things, this can be a great thing to add to your CV. You help develop a project. You could actually link to that project. It's all going to live on GitHub. It's all open source. Right. So you can actually build up your portfolio by joining and participating.
So very much, Perfect. It's a great start, like you guys started the show, right? With go to Lynda, go to Google, do your learning, and then come back and do the hackathons.
Yeah.
So it's a great way to build up your portfolio, your own skills. It's fantastic.
It's a fantastic segue. I'll let maybe the last question, Alejandro. Do you have one as somebody who doesn't organize events? What do you think about Bright Hacks?
Well, it's as Guy mentioned, it's a great opportunity. Like all the time that there's something like this, there's a great opportunity for those who are starting off a new career direction on their career, or they want to jump in a career or something. This is a great opportunity to start somewhere. The most important is to be active. That's one first, or professionally speaking, to do something. Second thing is to create a good network, and those places such as this event by QueerTech is a good example of where to network while you're still hustling or you're still learning new skills. So I think it's a great opportunity to do so.
Yeah, and to add my personal angle, I actually got my current job through networking with QueerTech, and it's it's approved. This works. Come join. You'll meet great people, and you could actually advance your career off of this.
I do agree with Guy, to be honest, because, for example, Guy talking about the opportunities, that's what happened with me. Like, if I got where I am right now and people recognize me within the ecosystem, is because of the things that I do for Montreal Tech, and I started off as a volunteer. Like, but don't expect, like, if you're joining either as an attendee or if you're joining as a volunteer, which I believe you might need some volunteers as well, Guy. The thing is, like, if you're involved, like, don't expect to be just an attendee that sees and just see things happening, but make things happen. If you don't make the things happen, then nothing will come from heaven.
This is fantastic, and I'll close on that because, of course, you can make things more accessible. You can lower the threshold for like obtaining education. You can create opportunities for networking, and you can create, opportunities for natural diversity to flow in. But ultimately, you have to be active and proactive. And I think a lot of recruiters, but just in general, people are usually very respectful of when you do something without being forced to. Not that you go to school and you force to, but you kind of follow a certain, path, right? But if you by yourself decide to go to hackathons and you by yourself decide to learn skills online, nobody forces you to do it. And usually people recognize that as being, related to your identity and what you care about, not just a program that you subscribe to. Although, I'm not removing anything from universities, but I mean, it has a certain, it doesn't come with the huge, like prestige of a university, but it talks about where your heart is at and what you want to learn on your free time. Hey guys, I need to close the show because Simran is pushing me. I need to go live, But as usual, if you have questions, you can use the chat section on Facebook. We're gonna, the show is over, but you can still ask your questions. Guy, thank you so much, and Dennis and Simran and Alejandro, thank you all for the show. And that's it for today. And we see you next week.
Thank you.
Perfect.
See you. Thank you,
everyone.
Yeah. Ciao, ciao.